guys, welcome to another week of digital learning, digital biology. We're going to keep on talking about plants this week. This video, hopefully you're watching this one first. This is transpiration, which is kind of about how plants actually breathe. And then the next one is about plant hormones and some special adaptations of plants for this week. For this video, I have my good friend. This plant is called a Zebrina. It's going to be featured in your online lab this week, but it's a really beautiful plant. It has these purple undersides of the leaves. We would have done a lab with these leaves um, if we were at school, but sad days we're not. So you can just admire this one from afar. Very beautiful. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about transpiration. Transpiration is another word that starts with trans, and we've learned a lot of those this year. So let's see, transformation was with bacteria. Transcription and translation is how DNA is used to make a protein. We've talked about, a bunch of different words that all start with trans, so that could be potentially confusing, but the only one that's related to plants is this one, transpiration. And transpiration, oh dear, so much there. Transpiration is exchange of gases through stomata in plant leaves. And this word stomata we'll talk about, but these are openings in the leaf that allow for gas exchange. So hopefully you remember that plants need to have carbon dioxide to do photosynthesis, and the way that they get that carbon dioxide is out of the air, and that's through the stomata. You also can call the stomata stomates. It's the same, they mean the same thing, and you hear them kind of interchangeably, but you can use either one that makes you happy. I usually use stomata. Okay, so now if we look at these diagrams I've drawn, not super great, but they're all right. There are cells called guard cells that are in the leaf of the plant. And I'm actually going to scroll down and show you this first because this is what the Zebrina looks like. So that plant that I just held up at the beginning of the video, this is what it looks like under the microscope, which is really cool. This is the underside of the leaf, and the guard cells are the bright yellow cells, and the space between them that kind of makes them look like a cat eye are the stomata. So stomata is plural. You can say stoma or stomate as singular. So this right here is just one of them. This is guard cells and an open stomate. If you can't see the eye part in the middle, the open space, then the stomate is closed. So this one looks a little bit more closed than the one that I circled the first time, but that's what they really actually look like under a microscope. Yeah, okay, so let's go back up here and talk about them. All right, so the guard cells, their job is basically to guard the stomates. So they either open or close depending on the time of day, and also just kind of what the plant's environment is like. The way that they're controlled on how they open or close is actually using osmosis. And there's a pretty complicated mechanism of how that works, using ions to kind of control the osmolarity of the cells and control it. But this goes back to what we talked about in the fall with the cells being either or flaccid, and this is why this matters for plants. So in this first image, here's the stoma or stomate, and you can see that it's open because there's a gap. And the reason that it's open is because the guard cells are turgid, which you might remember that's another word for swollen. And they're turgid because water has gone into the cells and caused them to like puff up, and then the water makes the stomach open because it's rigid. So then on the flip side, you have here that this is a stoma closed because the guard cells have gotten like kind of floppy and they've lost water. That's flaccid. So the guard cells are flaccid or like wilty. And so they are kind of like collapsing into the stoma. And so it's closed. So when it's closed, there won't be any carbon dioxide going into the plant and there won't be any um, oxygen coming out of the plant. So it's all closed up. Now, the other thing that's important here is that when the plant is releasing oxygen and gaining carbon dioxide out of the stomata, what's also getting released is water vapor. So the stomata don't want to be open all the time because if it was, the plant would just like continuously lose water um, through transpiration, and then the plant would be dehydrated, and that obviously is bad for plants. So over here, open stomata, the benefits are that you can release oxygen, which for the plant is a waste product of photosynthesis. And you also can absorb carbon dioxide, which is needed for photosynthesis. The costs are that when your stomata are open, you are losing water as vapor. So that's kind of the like cost benefit situation that plants are always working with is if they are doing photosynthesis, then their stomata probably are open. And that means the sun is also shining. And so they're also losing water. So it's just kind of like a, a balance that plants have to kind of find. Okay. So going along with this, different environments are going to have different effects on the number of stomata that plants have and the times that they open their stomata because of natural selection. So the plants that do this at certain times are better suited for their environment. And so those are the ones that will pass on their genes, you know, like we talked about with the evolution unit. So most plants are going to have open stomata during the day because that's when the sun allows for photosynthesis. And these plants are called C4 and C3 plants. We're not going to really go into that, but you might see it if you're like Googling or something like that. They're just most plants are going to have open stomata during the day. Now, some plants, and you guys kind of, I think, looked at this last week when you did plants around the world on Google Classroom, but some plants are desert plants. They live in super arid conditions. If they open their stomata during the day, the sun is going to basically suck all the water out of them and they would die. So these are usually desert plants like cactuses, cacti, and succulents. Oops. And they're going to actually open their stomata at night because conditions are too arid to support plant losing water during the day. Um, and then, of course, these plants also have other adaptations that make them special. Like they have spines instead of leaves, or they're adapted to have kind of like ridges in their like very chubby leaves that prevent water loss. Um, but one adaptation is that they actually open their stomata at night. They have these ways of kind of like fixing carbon so that they can still use it for photosynthesis when the sun shines again. We're not going to really get into that, but um, yeah, so they're able to actually open stomata at night instead of during the day to kind of lift it. They're almost like nocturnal plants, which is weird to think about. Okay, so then just the last thing about this is that obviously the number of stomata that a plant has is going to depend on the climate and the environment that it lives in. So typically, what you'll see is that plants in moist environments have more stomata because water is easily replenished. Also, you're going to see that the undersides of the leaves, undersides of leaves have more stomata because they are shielded from direct wind and sunlight, which means that they have less evaporation. So it's advantageous for the plant to have the stomata on the underside of the leaf because it can still gain as much carbon dioxide as it could if it was on the top, but lose less water. Okay, so that's like a very basic overview of transpiration and what it is and how it works. Thanks so much for watching. There's one more video for this week, so make sure you watch that one too. Hope you guys are doing great. Let me know if you have questions. Miss you bunches. Stay healthy. Bye.